The Town of Suffield Board of Selectmen, First Selectwoman Melissa M. Mack, Selectmen Timothy Reynolds, Pete Hill, and Jerry Mahoney, and Selectwoman Kathleen Harrington, warmly welcome all residents, community organizations, sponsors, businesses, friends, and neighbors to the 350th anniversary commemoration. On this historic day of celebration, we pay tribute to a place we all call home, a place we choose to raise our families, make lifelong friends, and call each other neighbors. A home that still honors the land and its custodians, our family-owned farms, whose hard work and commitment withstands the test of time. A town steadfast to preserving its rich history, as a walk along the architectural kaleidoscope of Main Street so readily reveals. A community that hoists the flag, heeds the call, reveres the fallen. A people quick to lend a hand, and so proud of this place we all call home. Today is a special day, a gift to pause and reflect on this 350th anniversary. At this moment in history, the year 2020, the opening words to the Dickens classic, A Tale of Two Cities, rings true. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. In 2020, we came to understand what matters most. Family, friends, good health, honest work, a place to call home, while we sheltered in place. Outside our havens, the global COVID-19 pandemic raged. Science played defense. Politics inflamed. Social justice faltered. Wildfires ravaged. Both stocks and unemployment soared, and citizens despaired. To our grandchildren, as you celebrate Suffield's 400th anniversary, remember us and know that you too will prevail. In 2020, the 350th anniversary was truly a welcome chance for good cheer. Today we celebrate the enduring beauty, grace, and indomitable spirit of the town of Suffield. Happy 350th anniversary, Suffield.
Hello, Suffield. Happy 350th anniversary. You're even older than me. But I love the fact that you celebrate the history, because what that means in terms of our state, what that means in terms of our community, Suffield, south of Massachusetts, Suff, the field, what you're doing, decorating your homes, decorating your barns, the car parade. How about a little pride? How about a little pride in Suffield on its 350th? Happy birthday to you.
"350 is an important milestone, a place worth caring about for 350 years. Connecticut has 169 towns. What makes Suffield stand out in the crowd? What qualities distinguish it from other places and make it a place worth caring about? Suffield has a distinguished agrarian history, center of the Connecticut Valley's renowned tobacco industry, present here for centuries. Suffield's farms and farmhouses are a precious legacy, epitomized by the preservation and development of Hilltop Farm. Farm stands and farmers markets. Suffield Academy is a treasure with a national reputation. The houses of worship are jewels. Kent Memorial Library is a mid-century modern masterpiece designed to fit well within the town's historic Main Street. There are many alluring roads and sections of town. One of my favorites is Boston Neck Road. The historic district along Main Street is a crown jewel containing dozens of historic homes. Winter, spring, summer, and fall, the historic Main Street is a marvel to behold, cherish, and preserve. 3 centuries of American architecture along this one street, including some of the most impressive textbook examples. The Reverend Ebenezer Gay's mid-18th century mansion is as impressive as anything in Deerfield, Wethersfield, or Litchfield. A flourishing tobacco economy and regional industrial base produced some outstanding Victorian age mansions. So many so beautifully cared for and enriched by gardens and flowers. Suffield wasn't a suburban town until it was, and it's why Connecticut loves its suburbs. A lesser known treasure is Kings Island, adjoining the Windsor Locks Canal State Park. The island has a campsite for kayakers and is part of a recreational revolution where biking and water trails are big assets. The historic burying ground in the center of town is a veritable sculpture park where history and art live. I've given tours there. No town has finer carved stonework. Think of it as a veritable art museum where each stone tells stories of lives lived and worlds before our time. The folk art is breathtaking. I've watched the Suffield Historical Society grow for almost 40 years. Let me repeat, Lester Smith is one of the most talented and devoted curators I've known, and I've known hundreds. The Society's King House is brimming with stuff and stories. Want to turbocharge education? The Learn Local movement is a rising tide. It's a rare day in class as memorable as what kids can learn in a place like this. The Phelps Hathaway House belongs on anyone's list of top 10 house museums in Connecticut and the Connecticut Valley. Oliver Phelps' story is epic, and the house is increasingly furnished with amazing treasures. The French wallpaper Phelps bought, it's the largest suite of early wallpapered rooms in the United States. My favorite part is the attic. As generations of Phelpses, Hathaways, and Fullers came and went, they left the attic alone. There you will find 5,000 or more items pretty much as left, none added after World War I, some going back to the 18th century, including a bedstead used by an enslaved African servant. Of course, the barn is gigantic and put to good use, a real jewel. 350 years makes us think. For me, it calls to mind the writings of the great Wendell Berry, who observes that the old town centers were built by people who were proud of their place and who realized a value in living there. The old buildings looked good because they were built by people who respected themselves and wanted the respect of their neighbors. Stewardship is truly the heart of historic preservation. Wendell Berry further suggests that it is by the place we've got and our love for it and our keeping of it that this world is joined to heaven. Congratulations on 350. May generations to come know and cherish this place.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky,
are also on the faces of people going by.
I see friends shaking hands, saying how do you do. They're really saying, I love you. These world, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Please join me in a moment of prayer. Gracious God, known by many names and no name, we are so grateful for this time set aside to celebrate 350 years as a Suffield community. A people in a place that has nurtured and sustained us and so many generations before us. Through difficult times and those of ease, through seasons of prosperity and seasons of want. In all those years when we've been faithful to your call for justice, peace, and love for all, and for those times when we have not, you have been with us, moving within us, drawing us closer and closer to your will and your way. And so we are grateful, so very, very grateful. And we ask, O God, that we might open ourselves to your presence now and in the years to come. And especially in these difficult times of the pandemic, that we would seek your will, your guidance, and your blessing, that we might become a blessing to all, to move us forward in this beautiful, bountiful place we call Suffield. And so grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the facing of this hour and the living of these days. Amen.
Happy 350th anniversary of Suffield. Hi, my name is Donna Chapman, and I'm a Suffield resident, and I'm honored to be the one to introduce our first Field of Flags. The concept behind the Field of Flags is for Suffield to show our love and our appreciation for those who have served and are serving our country and our communities. The 350 flags will be located at the town green, and they will be installed on October 11th, and they will remain there through Veterans Day, November 11th. So we thank our sponsors and those who had purchased flags to help make this happen. So we encourage you to enjoy the flags that are on display. And the proceeds will go between Suffield First Responders and Willpower for Veterans. Willpower for Veterans is a nonprofit that I set up in response to the loss of my son, who had served our country. And the concept is to help our veterans and first responders, those who are at highest risk to emotional injury and trauma. And the goal is to build a retreat center so our veterans and first responders have access to at no cost to them. So please enjoy the town green and the flags. I'm excited to see them up, and I can't wait. See you there.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
husband and I came from Northern Virginia when we moved to Suffield, and it was like going back in time. Parts of the town are like postcards that you drive through or you walk through. There's something about Suffield that's very special.
You could drive for 5 minutes and see nothing but farms and rolling hills and pastoral views.
When I think back to what brought people here 350 years ago, I think a lot of those things are still here today. Suffield is physically beautiful. It's a traditional New England town that runs alongside one of the great rivers in this country.
It's a small town. People care about education, care about their neighbors and the people who live here. It's sort of the perfect mix with farms and small businesses.
Suffield is just a really wonderful place to live, and a lot of people are driven to stay because of its rural character, the richness of its farms, of its land, and that is very powerful for a lot of people.
Suffield is a beautiful, beautiful place.
I play in the band for the Memorial Day Parade, so we march down the street and onto the green. It's really fun to see all the people in town come out and celebrate. It makes me proud of my town.
The Memorial Day Parade in Suffield is a wonderful community event where lots of different organizations will participate. It lines the streets on Mountain Road and everyone comes together.
I think we're so blessed that Suffield still has the character and the attitude of being a small town, even though it has grown phenomenally.
This day we remember with compassion your children who have given their lives in the service of our country, defending the very freedoms that we enjoy.
And then we end up at the Veterans Memorial.
We remember today and pay tribute to such unimaginable sacrifice.
Where we pay tribute to our wonderful servicemen and women who work so hard to give us the freedoms that we enjoy.
I think today is a wonderful example of Suffield at its best, where people really come together. They're all part of a movement that is palpable. They can feel it, they can touch it. They see all these other people around doing what they're doing and paying attention to what they're paying attention to. And that is very appealing.
I think the thing that most people find interesting about the beginnings of Suffield is the fact that we were started as a town out of Massachusetts from a surveyor's mistake in 1642. And there was arguments for years as to whether Suffield was Massachusetts or Connecticut. A final compromise was made in 1747, I think. And Suffield was given everything east of Lake Congamon, which is near the west end of Suffield. And Massachusetts kept the rest. So there's a big notch there called the Southwick Jog or the Connecticut Notch. The official action of getting Suffield started was in 1660. And the son of the big initial settler of Springfield, John Pynchon, came here. And he was really an entrepreneur in many ways. He made a deal with the Peconic Indians south of Stony Brook and the Agawam Indians north of Stony Brook. It was in 1670 that things really got going. We like to date ourselves from October 12th, which is the time that the General Assembly of Massachusetts gave John Pynchon the authority to take a 5-mile square piece of land on the banks of the Connecticut River. For a year or so it was Stony Brook Plantation, but very quickly it was Southfield and very quickly Suffield. In that period, the farms were getting full and people had to move out of the ones that started in Springfield, so they came to Suffield.
You could say that Suffield is a microcosm of the economic and maybe political growth of Connecticut from the early settlers. The rivers, the streams, are where a lot of the foundries and mills were formed.
What attracted people to Suffield was that we had an extraordinary piece of very good farmland. Most everybody was a farmer. Even Alexander King, who came here, he went to Yale and studied science and became a doctor in town, and was our town clerk and our representative to the General Assembly. Even he had a farm. Ebenezer Gay and his son together ran the Congregational Church in Suffield for about 100 years. The first Ebenezer was given the money to build a house in 1742, and his son lasted well into the 1800s, and they had a very strong influence on Suffield.
Timothy Swan was a very popular colonial composer. He lived in Suffield. He married Ebenezer Gay's daughter and composed some of his most famous music here in Suffield.
And he issued a little paper-bound pamphlet book, which is considered the first music book published in this country. In that period in the late 1700s, the climate was very much dominated by the church. And in the middle 1700s, that began to split. And there were some people who didn't quite believe in everything that the Congregational Church believed. So the first church for the separatists, who later called themselves Baptists in Suffield, which was the first such church in the whole Hartford County area, that was a couple of miles west of the center of town. There was a wonderful rumor that said when John Pynchon interviewed people who wanted some land outside of the cities, if they were pious, religious folks, he'd send them to Enfield, across the river. But if they were industrious, entrepreneurial types, he'd send them to Suffield. And that makes sense because we've always had a strong entrepreneurial spirit here, of people who really want to do things to better themselves. And I think it had an effect on what happened and made Suffield such a prominent, affluent town through the 1800s. An interesting thing happened in the early 1800s. The Second Baptist Church got its first building in the center of town. Baptists in all of Connecticut began to have some political power. The Connecticut Baptists said, you know, those schools, Yale and Harvard, they have ministry schools and they teach congregational Protestantism. We've got to have something that'll teach people how to be Baptist preachers. And they said, what town in Connecticut can raise a little money to augment what we're willing to invest and have such a school built in your town? Well, these entrepreneurial Suffield people rose to that challenge, and in 1833, as I recall, the Connecticut Baptist Literary Institution was formed. And then they started building their own school, 1834, and then began to grow. Soon the word Baptist was dropped from the name of the school, and for a very long time it was called CLI, that is to say, Connecticut Literary Institution. In 1938, the government, as part of Mr. Roosevelt's recovery programs from the Great Depression, was beginning to spend more and more money for towns to use federal money to invest in buildings, and Suffield built itself a new high school. It was almost a disaster for what later became Suffield Academy, because they lost a good many of their students.
And the Academy's future at that point was jeopardized. The enrollment went down to double digits. It somehow stayed in existence until the early 50s, when Suffield hired a man named Ap Severns, who went on to become a legendary figure in the history of the school. He was headmaster for 20 years and led a real renaissance of the campus, physically and also revitalization of the enrollment. And it became an all-boys boarding school with a day population, returned to coeducation in the mid-70s. And now today, Suffield Academy remains in Suffield's historic district right on Main Street, but stands as one of America's great independent schools. There are 415 students from 25 states and nearly 30 countries. There's a world-class faculty and unbelievable physical plant. But still, the shared values of the town and the school remain very firm. A commitment to natural beauty. It's been a great treasure of Suffield and still exists that way today.
Tobacco, for a long time, has been a major crop in the town of Suffield, and it grew gradually all through the 1800s. As a result, we ended up with the first cigar factory in the United States. The Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station, working with farmers in Windsor and Suffield, developed a variety of tobacco that looked quite different from what we now call broadleaf tobacco, which is waist high. The shade tobacco, as they call it now, which is grown under cloth netting, developed in the last decade of the 1800s and the first decade of the 1900s. The world doesn't think of Connecticut except for cigar smokers, and they know that a cigar with good Connecticut shade tobacco wrapper is the best there is. It's interesting that the money that was made in tobacco was multiplied by some intelligent investment insurance in Hartford. As many know, Hartford was considered the insurance capital of the United States. There were high-level executives and board members and investors in those insurance companies, and that simply increased some of the wealth in the mansions along Main Street, Suffield. Main Street was considered by the state of Connecticut a state scenic highway, a wonderfully eclectic miscellany of fine homes representing architectural styles all the way from early colonial houses up through the areas of the early 1900s. And in 1902, a trolley line expanded outside of Springfield and came down into Suffield. But at the same time, the Hartford trolley people were expanding up through Windsor Locks and up the length of what we call Boston Neck Road in Suffield and meeting the trolley from Springfield by 1904. From Hartford, the original trolley line charged a nickel for every little sector, a nickel to Windsor and a nickel up to Suffield. That was a wonderful idea until Mr. Ford started making cheap automobiles, and the trolley business in Suffield, along through the Main Street area, ended in the 1920s. Starting early on, the center of town was the intersection of this first road that was called High Street and this mountain road that we now call it. Its intersection with North-South Road became the center of town, and the town hall and a few of the early retail stores developed around there quite early. And we get into the middle 1900s, and that's the main strip of business in Suffield.
I was born here in Suffield, right on South Main Street. I went to Bridge Street School, and I also went to the middle school. Then I went to the academy for 2 years, and they built the high school. And I graduated from Suffield High School, the second class out of the new building in 1941. Main Street, you drove your car, you stopped once, and you could do anything you wanted to do. You could go to the fish market, you could go to Martini's, you could go A&P, you could go to the town hall where we used to have dances upstairs.
The Main Street of Suffield, I loved it. With all the old stores and the buildings. We would go to Nate's Luncheonette, and he had pinball machines, and we'd go up in the back and get a sundae, and you always got together there.
And then Julius the barber, so when I was little, my mother would send me to get my hair cut there, and I would say to Julius, now, don't cut it above my ears, Mother says.
And also, Babs Beach and the roller skating rink. Every Friday night was roller skating night. We went to Babs Beach, and God forbid we weren't there. That was growing up in Suffield.
We had so many good times. I hope the young people today have as much fun as we did growing up.
Hastings Farm here in Suffield has been around since 1916, when my husband's great-grandfather had the third mortgage on the property, and that's how the Hastings ended up acquiring the land. Originally, I think there was 40 acres, and right now we own 200. In 1956, they stopped doing tobacco and just focused on the dairy. We've continued with dairy, but added some beef animals as well. And in 2011 is when we started processing and bottling milk and making yogurt and cheese here on the farm as well, to try and diversify a little bit and keep up with the times and make more money.
We have a farm store which has our own milk, cheese, yogurt, and beef. And we'll bring in some jellies from other local farms. My role is to take care of the herd, so milking, herd health, and then with the other people working on the farm, we will raise the crop to feed the cows. We get up early, we work a lot of hours, but for me, I'm happy doing it because I like to be in the open spaces.
It's a very different lifestyle, but I've enjoyed it through the years. I've had the other world as well. Suffield has a nice small town feel, and grown up here and lived here all our lives, it's home.
There's a lot of Suffield pride, I would guess. Most of the people know each other.
And look
which
out
is
for
nice.
each other.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We sold our development rights to the state of Connecticut back in 2002. So the land can never be built on. It has to stay in agriculture because we didn't want to ever see the land sold and houses built on it. So we wanted it to stay the way it is.
I want to keep using it for agriculture and keep the farm going.
It's a pretty remarkable place. You've got families that have been here for 200, 300 years on the same properties. It's such a part of the fabric of the town.
My family is one of the settling families of Suffield. We arrived very early in the history of the town. My children and their cousins are the 12th generation in Suffield today. The house I live in is on what was the family tobacco farm for many generations. We've had people in the family that have branched out to other locations. Eliphalet Remington was actually born in Suffield and founded Remington Arms in upstate New York. The artist Frederick Remington was descended from Suffield line, but ventured out west. For 12 generations, my direct family stayed here in town.
To me, Suffield is a town that's just in my bones. My family's been in town since the 1670s. The house I live in, my family bought in the 1860s. My kids are the 6th generation there. It's a place of tradition, and I just want to see it preserved. That's wonderful about this town. People look out for their neighbors. I mean, they really do.
One example is when people confront hardship or tragedies occur in town. It is so striking to me how quickly people come together to support each other.
Got news on August 21st of 2017 that there was a collision involving our son off the coast of Singapore, and he was unaccounted for. During that time, the town went out of their way to support us in so many ways and asked if we wanted a vigil for Dustin till we actually heard the sad news that he perished.
Confirming today the worst fears of a Suffield family. Their loved one, Dustin Doyen, was among those lost in a collision involving a Navy destroyer near Singapore earlier this week.
So that's where the community came in as a whole even more. The plane came in and we were able to be there to have our son back home. And then the procession riding to the funeral home, and all along the route, the streets were lined with people for support. Fire trucks, police officers, state representatives, dignitaries. It was overwhelming.
300-400 kids standing along the road with their flags, all waving, some of them crying, knowing the sacrifice of our son and what it meant to the town to lose someone.
I grew up in Suffield, and this tragedy with our son Dustin just shows how tight this community actually was, is, and probably always will be.
There's no question that one of the strengths of the town is its commitment to its school system. You could interview people all day telling stories about the amazing teachers that inspired them as they were growing up. But I think an interesting thing is in the last few decades, there's definitely been more attention paid to strengthening the town center. There's been the work that's been done on upgrading the library. We have great school spirit here. We have so many areas of achievement over the years in the sports, in the arts, business, across disciplines, and these are consistently celebrated. It's a really interesting slogan to be called a town of farms, which might make one think only the rural side, but it's actually quite the opposite when you go and visit places like our Agri-Science Center, where it is absolutely forward-thinking and all about bringing our kids to the world today and finding out what they can do to learn and explore and grow. Within our agri-science program, the range of skills and professions that the kids are being trained for is astonishing. And it's rooted, yes, in agriculture and in traditional things, but in all sorts of branches of science and business. That is one of the absolutely unique things about our high school, and it is an amazing program.
Friends of the Farm at Hilltop run a wonderful annual event called the Farm Festival, where they bring to light all of the farming activities that really were pivotal to this community, of what this community in Suffield is based on.
It's really beautiful. It's just breathtaking. It's very peaceful to think that this is so close to Springfield, so close to the interstate, and you can be up there and you really feel like you're one with nature.
It reminds our community, our young children, what Suffield is really about.
What's really enjoyable, and I think that makes us very proud, is the number of families and multi-generational groups that come and just enjoy being outside, enjoy playing games.
Oh, that's good thinking.
We're totally unplugged. We find that FarmFest is a celebration of the agricultural heritage of Suffield and the region. And it's something that we are all awakened to, just how closely we are part of that history. And it's really lovely that we can keep it alive.
Can you get this one?
Hey, smile. Okay.
I've traveled all over the world. I could live or work anywhere, but there's a sense of home here that continually brings me back. It's a special feeling to be home in Suffield.
I'm a soccer player, so I go for runs a lot, and I like going along back roads. It's really nice to see the nature that we have and just the natural beauty that our town entails. I think it's just a really big part of what Suffield is and its personality.
I think this is a great place to live and to raise a family. There's a sense of community here that I think makes people want to be part of that community and make it a better place.
Suffield is a lovely, lovely place where even strangers become your friends.
One of the things that also I think has always made the town wonderful is that an amazing mix of people that comprise the community. So it makes it a pretty magical place.
I think Suffield is a tight-knit town and people know each other and familiar faces that you can see around town.
Do I love Suffield? Oh, do I love Suffield? Yes, I do. Yes, I do love Suffield. Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and I'm thankful it's my home.
On the Southfield Scenic Road, where merchants took their load, Suffield on the green, where dreamers come to dream. First time in this place, graham crackers, they taste great. And the cigar factory have a place in history. Old Bridge neighborhood, remember all the good. Through tornado and the flood, we did all that we could. It was the last field on the road. For the postman I am told, Springfield to Hartford town, now it's turned around. If you need to be blessed, there's a place that passed the test. Come along and be a part of a town with a heart, of a town with a heart. Town of Farms, a country jewel. Eagles fly across the schools. 3 ponds in another state. Cottages and mansions great. Canals and sails, a native place. Welcome all to sacred space. Congamon, long fishing place. Our ponds of holy grace. Rail trail, all here. On the Metacomet trail. Come on down, bring a pal. To Windsor Locks Canal. There was a panoramic view test. Come along and be a part of a town with a heart. Of a town with a heart. Head or heart, which will I choose? One will win and one will lose. Scarecrow's voice in the dark. I will choose a heart. I will choose a heart. There were slaves who now are free. In our world family, immigrants have come to see what they are meant to be. Volunteers to charity. This is our legacy. There is much for us to do. Heal the world sounding true. Suffield has come to be. Welcome community. From the moment that I came, I was never the same. No matter what the future brings, we will laugh and we will sing, echoing across the land. Reach out and lend a hand. If you need to be blessed, there's a place that passed the test. Come along and be a part of a town with a heart. Of a town with a heart. If you need to be blessed, there's a place that passed the test. Come along and be a part of a town with a heart. Of a town with a heart. Of a town with a heart.